All right, do a little review here of the Zigzag Plus. As you can see, mine's well worn and could use some cleaning, but it still functions beautifully. So I'm gonna go ahead and run my rope through here. So I'm talking about it. So the Zigzag Plus is the successor to the previous Zigzag. There have been two versions. The first one had a recall, and the second version they discontinued sometime last year. It's not hard to get on. It fits most every rope I've ever used it for. I've yet to find a rated climbing rope that it doesn't work, at least as far as the arborist world goes. This here I'm putting it on was Poison Ivy. It's one of my thinner ropes. I also run it on my Samson Voyager as well as the pink Adrenaline here from Teufelberger. Fits all of them easy. You gotta kind of have a little bit of a narrow tapered end. That makes it easier to get it through all the links initially, but if you do, works great. All right, so in a double rope configuration, you can attach your second carabiner either to that hole or this one. If I've got a knot here, I find that I prefer to use the hole that's a little bit farther away from the links. I'll show you what I mean here. So if I'm tying a termination knot, it adds a little bit of bulk to my rope. So that bulk can interfere with the links a little bit, but if I attach it over here, now it doesn't. Notice there's a little bit of a gap like that. And that's how you want it. If that's interfering, then it starts to cause some problems. Very simple device, functions just exactly like the friction hitches that you're used to using. Right now I'm through a friction saver up top, and as you can see, it's very gradual release of friction. That's what I love about this device. It's very confidence inspiring. I encourage new climbers, if they're just getting started in the mechanicals world, I always tell them, hey, this is a good first buy. It's very confidence inspiring because one, there's no way for the rope to get out of it. So it doesn't feel like it's gonna fall out like on the Uni. Or the Akimbo, I mean, the Akimbo feels pretty solid too, but because it opens up, it could be a little bit scary. This is just so consistent with its friction across ropes, across circumstances. It's very gradual in its release, so I can control it very finely with one hand, no problem. If I'm doing a limb walk, if I come way out here, it's easy to deal with. If I'm coming back, I can pull here, or I can pull above it and then tend my friction. If I've got a narrow rope and I've got enough height weight of rope below me, it'll tend itself a lot of times. It doesn't work as well with Voyager and with the Adrenaline because they're a little thicker diameter ropes. And despite this being as pitchy as it is, the device doesn't care much if your rope has sap. If it's really bad, it'll stick a little bit, but I've never had trouble just pulling it right through the sticky spot on the rope, even on a fat rope like Voyager. For that reason alone, this has been my go-to for the last 6 years of climbing. I've used a lot of different devices, and I'll always have this on at least one of my ropes so I can just grab it and jump right up in the tree. But I want to show you here also, the primary reason for these two holes is so that we can use this in a single rope configuration and in a V-rig configuration. And so I'll show you the single rope next.
Okay.
All right. If you see your buddies using it like this, you say, hey, stop that. That's not safe. It's not rated for use in a single rope from this direction. You need an additional device. Petzl offers their own device. It's called the chicane. It functions pretty simply. It opens up like that, fits on the rope, and you need a Petzl carabiner because the way the chicane, it's got a little shaped hole right here that keeps this from rotating. So it's nice in that it keeps this thing vertical. So if I pull up on this, it stays vertical. It doesn't ever want to collapse down. But it's a little bit annoying in that you actually need a Petzl carabiner to fit in there. Most other brands will not fit appropriately. This just adds a little kink. It spreads the load between the links and these other rings, just as if you were in a double rope configuration. It's pretty straightforward. If I'm gonna go ahead and climb up this a little bit, I take my chest harness, I'll either clip it up here or I'll clip it down here. Sometimes if I've got another rope on, I'll even clip it here. Doesn't make too much difference, I find. So I'll go ahead and clip it here. Going up. This thing follows so smooth. Of course, I'm on poison ivy, so it's a nice thin rope. Doesn't have any trouble tracking underneath me. If I sit down, it gives me about 3 inches of sit back. A little bit more than on the Unisender or the Akimbo. But when I'm coming down, it's just buttery smooth and consistent. I like that I can lean back on this and this isn't gonna come free, unlike the Akimbo. And I can really easily and precisely control this. I'll show you a downside though. Say I'm coming over here for a limb walk and I gotta come up and over a branch, and so I wanna pull a little bit of slack through my system. If I come up here and try to pull slack, it's really difficult to pull it through the chicane. A lot of times I'll pull it open, pull a bunch of slack out when I'm lanyarded in, and I'll pass this whole operation around and I'll clip back into it, rather than just trying to pull it through the chicane. If you're using a rope wrench, that's not necessarily the case. The rope wrench is fairly easy because on the rope wrench I can collapse the top and the links at the same time and pull it through. With the chicane, it's just not the case. It requires a lot of force to get it to come through. It doesn't look bad because I'm standing on square ground, but if I'm up in a tree and I'm even slightly off balance, I find that to be kind of irritating. I will demonstrate it with the rope wrench here because I've got that though, just for the sake of being able to see the difference. Alright, so the rope wrench goes on there, very similar to the chicane. The chicane, in my opinion, is just a straight knockoff of the rope wrench. Rope wrench came first. Thank you, Singing Tree, Kevin Bingham. Appreciate you, pioneers. So it performs the same function essentially, right? Puts a little kink in my rope. I can let that out, and it releases. Add some friction above my zigzag. If I'm coming in, it folds, does the same thing. One advantage though of the rope wrench with a stiffy tether here is I can collapse this and pull it down on top of the links, and I can pull one-handed rope right through a lot more easily without having to take this off and on. One other advantage of the rope wrench over the chicane is when I'm coming over the top of a limb, say I'm climbing over a horizontal limb right here, if the limb is right here and I'm swinging underneath and I create a little bit of flex in the rope, this is a stiff but pliable tether, so it's got some flex to it, and I'm not going to damage it. I'm not going to hurt it structurally if I flex this tether a little bit over a branch. The chicane, not so much. It's rigid. If I have this here and I go to flex it, I could actually break that, or I could break this point down here. Because this is rigid, it actually functions maybe a little bit nicer, but it's a little bit more prone to damage when you're climbing through an awkward canopy. Worth knowing, as the rope wrench and the tether cost about the same as the chicane in the long run. Rion Rounds actually has a great tether as well. It's really similar to the chicane, and he kind of pioneered the spring-loaded release, and so I recommend checking his out too. Once again, it's not Petzl, but it's an excellent product. All right, so climbing up with this rope on a single line, it's just as easy as doubled. It's got the advantages of being on a single rope. A little bit of sit back, it's again 2 or 3 inches. It's nothing crazy. I've got my neck tether attached here. You can take that off real easy, do my work, do what I gotta do, come down. Can operate this with one hand, no problem. Very smooth, very controllable. I like it. Pitchy rope or no, this is no problem to operate with one hand. great downside to the Zigzag. I'm getting it off the rope.
6.5 hours later.
So that was the review of the Petzl Zigzag Plus. Let me know what devices you guys like to climb on, what hitches, tell me any pros and cons. I'm happy to hear your feedback, and any other devices that you're curious about, just leave it in the comments below. I'd be happy to do another review or another tips and tricks video. I'm going to leave a link to the comparison between the Unisender and the Akimbo, as well as the Rope Runner and the Akimbo, in the description below, and hopefully it'll be on your screen here as well. Thanks for joining me, Strider Tree Gear. See you next time.